When a man enters a woman, the world stops for a moment. Time stretches, breath slows, and in that instant a man crosses a threshold. It is not merely the threshold of flesh, but of psyche, of his entire being. Carl Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And this, too, applies to intimacy. Because within that moment, when two bodies meet, the soul awakens. Desire is no longer just physical, it becomes spiritual, psychological, even archetypal. It becomes a mirror of who we are, and who we are afraid to be. For centuries, men have been told to be strong, to dominate, to perform. But deep beneath that armor, Jung would say, lives the shadow. The hidden, silent self that trembles with fear, longing, and the ache to be truly seen. And it is during intimacy, when the masks fall, that this shadow steps forward. The first thing a man feels is power. The feeling of being chosen, desired, wanted. For a brief moment, he feels like a god, confident, dominant, fulfilled. But in that very same heartbeat, a second feeling appears, vulnerability. Because in the face of intimacy, no mask can stay on forever. Jung called it the collision of the persona and the shadow. The persona, the outer man, the mask of control, meets his hidden insecurities. He fears he might not be enough. That his body, his rhythm, his worth might fail to satisfy. And so, what begins as pleasure becomes an inner dialogue. A storm between pride and fear. Between the lover who wants to give, and the child who fears rejection. If you could hear his thoughts in that moment, you would not hear only passion, but prayer. Every man carries a silent hunger, the need to be seen. In intimacy, that hunger surfaces through her eyes, her breath, her response. For many men, her pleasure becomes proof of his existence. It is not vanity, it is validation. A deep, unconscious desire to feel, I am enough. Jung would say that the woman becomes the mirror of his anima. The feminine part of his soul that he cannot express in words. He does not just want her body. He wants her acceptance, the quiet confirmation that he is safe, loved, and seen. But when he chases this validation without awareness, intimacy turns into performance. He loses himself in trying to be impressive, instead of being present. The unconscious, Jung said, always seeks balance. And so, when a man's validation depends on reaction, his spirit begins to break under the weight of expectation. True connection is born when the man no longer seeks approval, but offers presence, steady, grounded, unafraid of silence. In Jungian psychology, every man carries within him an anima. A symbolic feminine image of love, tenderness, intuition, and soul. During intimacy, the anima awakens. The woman before him becomes more than a partner, she becomes a mirror of his inner feminine. That is why even casual encounters rarely stay casual. Because the body may forget, but the psyche remembers. He may not speak of it, but somewhere in his unconscious, the memory of her touch, her scent, her sound, lingers as an echo of his own inner wholeness. This is why some men run after connection, and others run away from it. They are not running from the woman. They are running from the parts of themselves that the woman awakens. Intimacy becomes a form of alchemy, a merging of opposites. Masculine and feminine. Ego and shadow. Control and surrender. When this alchemy is understood, intimacy becomes more than an act, it becomes transformation. Every man carries within him two forces, fear and love. Both awaken when he is inside a woman. Fear whispers, you will lose yourself. Love whispers, you will find yourself. But both are right. Because intimacy is an undoing. To be close is to risk exposure. To feel pleasure is to risk pain. This is why so many men detach after closeness. not because they are cruel, but because the unconscious fear of vulnerability floods their system. He pulls away not from her, but from the mirror she holds up to his soul. Jung wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And nowhere is that more true than in love. The man who fears love becomes addicted to lust. The man who avoids vulnerability becomes addicted to control. But the man who dares to stay, to breathe, to feel, to face the shadow, discovers that love was never weakness. It was the courage to remain open in the storm. After intimacy, silence speaks louder than words. For many men, what happens afterward defines everything. Her tone, her touch, her distance. They shape how he sees himself in the mirror the next morning. A cold silence can feel like rejection. A warm gaze can heal an entire childhood wound. Because intimacy does not end when the act ends. Its echo travels deep into the psyche, rearranging how a man perceives love, trust, and identity. Over time, he learns that his peace cannot depend on her reaction. It must come from within. From the quiet knowing that he has nothing to prove, nothing to fear. That is the moment he becomes free. Not from love, but within it. When a man truly understands himself, intimacy changes forever. He no longer sees it as a conquest, but as communion, the meeting of two souls on the path toward wholeness. He learns that inside her, he meets not only pleasure, but the reflection of every part of himself he has yet to love. And if he stays long enough, not in the act, but in the truth, he discovers that the greatest pleasure is not release, but revelation. The revelation that love, in its deepest form, is not about losing control, but surrendering to what is real.
So, to the men who listen, when you enter her, do not just enter her body, enter her presence. Enter the moment with awareness, with gratitude, with reverence. Because that space, where two souls breathe as one, is sacred ground. And to the women who listen, know that a man's silence does not always mean distance. Sometimes it is the quiet weight of transformation, the sound of a man meeting himself for the first time.